Folks, we got to talk about Theodore Geisel, okay? AKA Dr. Seuss, AKA one of the most popular and most prolific children's authors of all time. Operated in the 40s through the 60s and the 70s. JoJo and Seuss shenanigan. You know what? I forgot to do the JoJo thing. I'll do it later, Todd Von Meer. We're in the middle of a segment. I promise I'll do it. Remind me. So, a piece of news came out yesterday, I think. And we'll work backwards from the larger news and media conversation as a whole to what actually has happened, to why and the repercussions of that happening. And then I've got a special treat for you folks, all right? So we're going to have to stick around. So, let's see what happens if I go on twitter.com and search Dr. Seuss. All right? We're going to do it. We're going to see what we find. Dr. Seuss. All right, let's see what we find. Let's delve deep into the depths of twitter.com, okay? Whoa, too much. Dr. Seuss is bad for kids, but this is okay? Beginning to think that the cancel culture discourse around beloved childhood brands is an ingenious heatsink for rage that would otherwise be directed in far more destructive directions? We'll get to that. Dr. Seuss, Jenna Ellis says Dr. Seuss has done more for this country than Joe Biden. Dr. Seuss is more trusted than Dr. Flip Flop Fauci, let's be honest. Many GOP in Congress are mad about Dr. Seuss and how it may hurt children. All right, so what's the narrative here, all right? What are we trying to spin? Dr. Seuss has been canceled. Dr. Seuss is no more. His books are being pulled from shelves because he's a racist. Right? If y'all have an uncle who's on Facebook, I can guarantee that's the kind of shit you're seeing right now. All right? It's been 2 days. Cancel is a strong word. That's the word that's being used, my friend. That's the word. So, what has actually happened here? Well, what has happened is, I know people fail to read. Yeah, exactly. They just find things to be mad about, and then they're mad about it. They get it out of their system. And then rather than sitting in that and introspecting for a second, they move on to the next thing to be mad about. All right? Case in point, how quickly did we forget about the Potato Head Gang when Dr. Seuss got canceled? Okay? Here is what has happened. On Tuesday, Dr. Seuss Enterprises, the business that preserves and protects the author's legacy, announced that it will no longer publish 6 books because of racist and insensitive imagery. The books, which include And to Think I Saw It on Mulberry Street and If I Ran the Zoo, portray people in ways that are hurtful and wrong, the company said. The decision was met with divided reactions and sparked a discussion on how to deal with books containing racist or other offensive imagery. You know what? I've got an idea. Let's get, in an effort to, both sides, All Elite Wrestling Dynamite is airing on TNT. Yep, and that's Sting right there, famously dressed up as himself in the crowd. One of my favorite gifs of all time. Let's get the Ben Shapiro take, shall we? We love Ben Shapiro on this stream, don't we, folks? Let's see what this big brain boy has to say and retweet about Dr. Seuss. Can we pitch modulate his voice out of annoyance rage? I wonder what he would sound like pitched down. Oh god, he posts so much. ABP, always be posting, I guess. Come on, Dr. Seuss, Dr. Seuss, Dr. Seuss. Here we go. Are we ready? We found it. Attempts to ban Dr. Seuss books by Theodore Seuss Geisel, who was, like all of us, a product of his time, will fail for the same reason censorship always fails. Readers are more curious than censors are censorious. Trademark and here, what is this the thread? Trademark and copyright protections are provided by the government. If trademark and copyright are utilized not to protect intellectual property from infringement, but in order to actively suppress that intellectual property, the IP should enter the public domain. In other words, if the estate of Ray Bradbury decided to remove future copies of Fahrenheit 451 from shelves, Fahrenheit 451 should lose copyright protection and be made available to the public. No, Ben, that's not how that works. If they decide to not print it anymore, they decide not to print it anymore, okay? Cancel culture has come for Dr. Seuss. Don't dismiss this as yet a... Is Ben gonna hire him now? Yeah, I guess. Ben Shapiro hires Dr. Seuss as new cartoonist for the Daily Wire. Don't dismiss this as yet another case of fringe activists overreacting. It's a campaign to indoctrinate kids to take on progressive causes. My latest column for Newsweek. Good job, Ben. Oh, the copyright understander, the developmental psychology understander has entered the chat, all right? Cancel culture probably did come for Dr. Seuss, but it didn't also. The dog whistle, I didn't catch the dog. Where was that? Oh, yeah. In the Jason rant. Nice one, Jason. So, has cancel culture come for Dr. Seuss? No. The estate decided, hey, we've got some pretty problematic imagery as a result of the time these things were written, right? And maybe, just maybe, we don't want to continue to distribute that to kids, alongside books that are generally considered from his later catalog to be more helpful. Like the Sneetches, like Horton Hears a Who, things like that have good messages. It's the Chinese. First they came after 4G, then our phone, and now Dr. Seuss. Rai, welcome to the stream. Happy to have you. It's cancel culture run amok. It's the Chinese. Except it's not. It's all right. So, it's an interesting question. How do we handle problematic content in our media, especially children's media? And this has echoes of, do you guys remember a few months ago when Disney Plus removed, I think it was Aristocats, Dumbo, and Aladdin, among a couple others, from like the auto playlist for the kids version of Disney Plus? Do you guys remember that? This has got the same kind of people mad. So it's always, didn't Steamboat Willie or something like that get a big disclaimer? Yeah, a lot of Disney stuff has gotten disclaimers. We'll get to that. But it's the similar cries of, oh, well, you don't get to choose what my children can or can't consume. If I, as a parent, want to parent my kid and show them the media that I saw as a kid, and I turned out okay, why should they get to choose whether or not I get to show it to my kid? Similar vibes, right? Disney as a whole should have a disclaimer. Did they turn out okay? Did they? See, now here is my, and I actually did use this with a family friend of mine. Did we not? I grew up in a very, very, very primarily white rural neighborhood in Pennsylvania, all right? Did we or did we not, Amanda, say and do some pretty insensitive, caricatured stuff about Asian people in middle and high school? Did we not engage in some of that edgy stuff? You know, the squinting of the eyes and the dirtying of the knees. Remember those crows in Dumbo? I think it was Dumbo. Yep. Yeah, the minstrel crows. Yep. Sure do. One of them was literally named Jim Crow. They didn't exactly make it fucking subtle, Rye. So, Not saying you can't show your kids the book, you just can't buy new copies of the book, so time to hoard all the copies of those. Profit, silly people. True. So my argument to these people is this. You are still free. They didn't take those movies off of Disney Plus. They're not pulling all of the Dr. Seuss books out of libraries and shelves, right? A lot of libraries, I've seen a couple that have decided to pull it into like a professional collection. They're publishers, so they have editorial control. Somebody tell Ben. Some libraries are pulling it into a professional collection if people want to see it, instead of them just stumbling upon it in the wild. Most libraries are choosing to keep them on shelves. And most bookstores, I'm assuming, are choosing to keep whatever copies they have on the shelves to sell. Because I'm sure they're going to be much more valuable now. If they've made that decision to do that, that's fine. I don't think that the government or any other party was under any obligation to censor that piece of media. They did it because they wanted to decrease their casual racism impact on the world. I think that's fine. Someone bitches they can download some ebook and read it to their kids to be rebels, whatever. Exactly. And they can show their kids Dumbo. I think that I'm not saying I don't think that kids should be shown this media. As someone who comes from a developmental psych background, if kids consume media uncritically, that's the point. And this is the salient point, uncritically. If they are allowed to watch Dumbo on their own, scrolling through Disney Plus, there are some things that their brain's going to remember out of that. If you've played the Telltale games, little Billy will remember that, right? Little Billy will remember Jim Crow from Dumbo. They'll remember the Siamese cats from Aristocats, right? And that can come out in some pretty fucked up ways down the road, especially if you're interacting with folks from that group. That's the point that's being missed. This isn't governmental censorship at all. This is a publisher saying, we need to pull this and think about some things. Yeah. And kids won't be racist because they watch Dumbo, but we will preserve things that did affect kids because those tropes don't exist anymore. Right. It's consuming those tropes uncritically. Because kids are like sponges. They just want to soak up as much about society as they can. They're like, oh boy, a new movie I haven't seen. And they're like, oh boy, some Siamese cats. This is kind of catchy. This is a banger. Yeah, you're right, Composer Moser. Give it to me. I want it. Old people carry those tropes from childhood by watching those things. That's what I'm saying. If we want kids to watch these things, it's always people who are like, let me parent my kid. Okay, great, Amanda. Fucking parent your kid then. Walk your kid through why these are problematic. Tell your kids, look, there's a disclaimer at the beginning of the video. Kid ain't gonna read that disclaimer. And this is something that Disney and WB are doing. There's a disclaimer that says, hey, these things are a product of their time. We've chosen not to edit them and keep them in their original form, A, to pay homage to Walt Disney and the original creators, and B, because to ignore, and I think this is in WB's, to ignore these things and pretend that these animations and tropes didn't exist is pretending like those thoughts didn't exist at that time. And it's important to acknowledge that people did think these things, they did manifest these things through their art, and that's not something that we currently subscribe to today. I think that's important to do. I will show my kid, and to think that I saw it on Mulberry Street, I will show my kid Dumbo, but I'll sit with them and say, hey, the way that these crows are presented are very reminiscent of minstrel shows. Here, and it's a harmful trope about black people, but, you know, if you see people acting like this, they're not being very nice. Things like that. I think that's a good perspective to have on media. All right? Requires parental oversight as you're describing, which feels way less prevalent these days. Exactly. It's that everyone that I saw was like, my kid can watch whatever they want on Disney Plus. I'm the parent. I get to parent my kid. It's like, okay, then great. You can make the choice to have your kid suck up these tropes with no... You can have your kid watch 2019's Joker if you really want to. If you want them to be exposed to ideas like that, you can just throw them on HBO Max and like have them go crazy. They can watch Joker and then watch Tom and Jerry like I fucking did the other day. But like, that's not an idea that you want. Those aren't ideas that you want your kid to have. Those aren't perceptions of people and ideas that you want your kid to have. Parent your kid. I say as someone with no kids. Anyway, I thought that we could take a look. I watched Dinotopia as a child. Does anyone ever watch that too? It's amazing to go back to and realize the main fucking character was the same guy as the main character in Prison Break. Dinotopia is from Golden, what I remember. I don't know if that was something that we had in the U.S. Dinotopia. I'll have to look that up. It's on Amazon Prime. I will check it out. I thought we could go through a few because Theodore Seuss Geisel has a pretty storied history. Ba-doom-tsh. And a lot more of his stuff than just these 6 books is problematic. So I kind of want to give you guys the full scope here. All right, I want to give you guys the full picture. We're here to help. All right. Let's take a look at the Twitter thread here. There he is. There's our man. So this is this has been changed a couple times apparently. So originally the text for this one and to think that I saw it on Mulberry Street. Yeah, it's blatant. It's not even subtle. Well, this has been edited multiple times. Right now, he doesn't have the ponytail. He doesn't have the yellow skid. Originally, this was the drawing, and it called him a Chinaman. It was a Chinaman who eats with sticks. All right, yikes. Okay. Here's some of his political cartoons. For those of you. A content warning, very, very bad depictions of Asian people, all right? And Southeast Asian people. Are we ready? So this was directly post Pearl Harbor in 1942. So we have a swath of Asian people coming from Washington and Oregon and California to receive their TNT from the Honorable Fifth Column and then go about their day, all right? 6 days after this, we started locking Japanese people in internment camps. 6 days after this comic came out. Fucking yikes, okay? What have you done today to help save your country from them? All right, really, really soak it in, folks. Really get it in there. Here we go. All right. So the first one says, and I'm not going to read it in the dialect that it was. I'm going to read it completely straight, not in the dialect that was intended. All right. Wife on vacation, king? Vacation, nothing. Nice girl, but I simply had to swap her in for this flit gun. A flit gun is it's the thing that you usually see in old cartoons that like they spray bugs with. It's a tss. If you've ever seen that, you can kind of see it up at the top there. And you can see these are not good depictions of African folks, okay? That was humor back then. Yep, the joke was you were racist. He's called an Arab here. It's not even funny minus racism. Exactly. The racism is the joke. The oppression is the joke. O Allah, send a generous shower of rain to quench our sun-baked thirst. Traveler says, yeah, and how about a shower of flit to quench these damn mosquitoes? My parents said they don't see how COVID is causing a rise in anti-Asian sentiments and hate crimes, so I pointed to how we handled Pearl Harbor and our history of racist depictions of minorities. They rolled their eyes. Yeah, they didn't want to hear that. So, what do we normally hear when we see things like this? Oh, they're a product of their time, right? It does. It has been throughout this in the year. No joke, people ignored that. Straight up, yeah. People just don't want to hear it. Like, no, oh no, our society couldn't be racist. And then when we're like, oh no, here's these ways that they're racist, and then people are like, no. They're a product of their kind. No shit, Sherlock, but why would we want this today? Exactly. We can look at them through a critical lens and realize that's why the disclaimer that WB does is important, right? That's why we say this media should exist. You can't destroy information in today's day and age. we shouldn't remove this information from the public eye. We need to look at it, we need to really soak it up, and we need to acknowledge that these aren't ideas or stereotypes that we subscribe to anymore. I wouldn't want to, it's just we don't show it to kids. Exactly. We don't show like gun violence to kids, even though there used to be a lot of fucking gun violence in cartoons. So, well, yeah, it's still around. There is Walter. Yeah. American media is more scared of sex than violence with kids. True. Acknowledge and analyze the content for what it was and what it is now. True. Whose favorite movie as a 7-year-old was The Patriot? Yo, we got shown The Patriot on like the middle school band bus, all right? I'm like 7 years old. It was the uncut version too. So little 7-year-old me is like I knew my eyes shouldn't be soaking up that information, okay? That's why I was fine with watching The Walking Dead when it came out when I was like 12, 13. Anyway, folks. So we've worked backwards through the controversy. We've talked about how conservatives are reacting, what actually happened, and why it might be helpful to kind of pull these books from the public eye and contextualize them, all right? Same with Braveheart. I pictured native people of British Isles as some hobbit home-dwelling people. Reality is they had castles, towns, and everything. True. Much more technologically advanced. Yep. They had their shit together. Much like the First Nations people, the Native Americans had their shit together before we came in and fucked them up. They were getting there. So, for those, I wish those conservative guys were still here. What's with this film though? Trying to think of movies, but Green Mile comes to mind. What do you mean? Where's this with film? Where we're like pulling them back and contextualizing them. I mean, Green Mile's Stephen King, so, and it's an adult film, I think. So, you might say, well, Cody, Chill Giant, put your money where your mouth is, all right? Why don't we take a look at you've never read these books. How do you know they're offensive? Well, guess what? I'm a librarian, folks. I have a treat for you. Here I have 3 of the actual books that have been canceled by Dr. Seuss's estate, okay? We're reading banned books, folks. Canceled books. And for the sake of posterity, these were the only 3 that I could get my hands on. For the sake of posterity, we're going to do a little adult story time here, okay? Call yourself back to an earlier time. We're going to take a look at these books. We're going to read through them with a critical lens. We're going to see if we can find... It'll be like a hide and seek. We're going to see if we can find where these are slightly problematic today and why maybe they should be pulled. Or at least stopped being produced. Are the libraries removing them? I know some that are. Yo, what's up, contingency? I know some libraries are choosing to pull them back to professional collections. Our library has chosen to keep them out for the public because, you know, it's like I said, it's up to a parent to figure out what their child is reading, to guide them through their reading journey, things like that. So, I'm going to do 3 separate segments. For those of you who are watching on YouTube later on, I will have them linked right there. On stream here, we're going to go ahead and we're going to run through each of these, and we're going to see if we can find where these are a little bit cringe.